We're going to start all over. I just did that as a, let everybody get in. Let everybody get in. Let everybody get into the dojo before I start talking. Okay. I'll just tell you why it happens. Because Boomer GM, while he's setting stuff up, I bet there's already 1,000 Discord messages. DM Hoki's on me, Kostya's on me, you're muted, buddy. Hey, I'm sorry, all right? I'm sorry. Boomer GM, when he's setting up the stream, okay? When Boomer GM sets up the stream, I don't want to hear my burps or my farts or anything like that, so I mute the thing, So I mute the thing. So anyways, that's how that happens. All right. Let me explain to you what we're going to do. I'm going to say it again. Today, welcome to the graduate stream. This is my favorite part of the week. We look at, very simple, what the graduates did to get to where they are using the scoreboard. And then if they have annotated a game, I'm going to go over that game. Okay, so one of the problems of the dojo, we have several, the dojo is constantly evolving. And a lot of the evolution has to do with technological stuff, especially in this first year of our growth. But something that has to do with, I want to say, chess cultural growth, is that we need people to be annotating their games. So for example, in this stream, we're going to see that most of the graduates haven't actually submitted annotations. And this is because, mostly it's hard to do the work. Looking at your own games is very painful, and it takes a lot just to get started. Plus, there's technological friction that some people aren't clear on how to do it. I will explain how to do it. And then there's, of course, the fear of having your annotations out there for people to see and that can feel insecure. And part of the beauty of the Dojo training database, and I say this every time, is by knowing that your annotations will be out there for other people to see, it will force you to be more clear in how you describe what was going on in the game. And that clarity will help you think more clearly in chess. As we say in the writing world, clear writing is clear thinking. Okay, the other thing I want to point out, we have a hero of the dojo, Jack Stenglein. This guy, okay? Talk about technological feats of the dojo. This guy helped us do the scheduler so people can organize sparring matches or maybe study sessions. That was a key technological hurdle for the dojo to get over. So Jack did that, and he has helped out with the scoreboard. Why do I bring him up? Because even though he's not graduated today, he played against graduates who didn't do the annotations themselves, but Jack did. So we're going to look at some of Jack's games against these graduates. Okay. All right. So we're going to take this one by one. I've organized them in terms of rating. So we're going to start from 400, 600, all the way up to 1,600, 1,700. That'll be the order of things. And so let's get this done correctly. And the first couple people, we're going to start with Sagging Rufus. I could not find any of Sagging's games in the database, but let's go look at what he did in the scoreboard. Anybody can go see what's going on in the scoreboard, and we're just going to take a spy here. This is also for my benefit in that I like to see what people did, how they got to where they are. So as you can see, Sagging Rufus started at a 200 chess.com rating and has now got a 631, my friends. 631. Rating increase of 431. Per box ticked 27. Amazing. Amazing. Now, maybe with the database, by the way, there might be people out there who I can't find their games because they submitted it under a different name. Possible. In any case, here we see that Rufus says that he submitted 2 games. I want to note that here is where you can submit the game to the database over here. And Let's look at what else he did. Maiden ones, fantastic. And basically, look at this. Every single box the dude has clicked besides the games, right? Fantastic. He did all the work except for the games. So one of the cool things, that's a remarkable progress, right? From going from 200 to 631. That's just stunning. And that shows that he wasn't close to his rating floor when he started, right? So we'll see at some point he'll hit a plateau of some kind, and then we'll see what he needs to do to progress. Beautiful. All right, let's go to number 2, and that's going to be Jared or Jendo. So let's see if we can find Jared or Jendo here. There he is. So he went up to 600, 700, and there he is. Can you see him? He's at the bottom there. I'll scroll down a little touch. Started at 650, went up to 851. Totally stunning. And why it doesn't have the rating progress or box ticked, I don't know. I don't understand that. Maybe that's the name he's under, JJZZHH, in the database. Maybe I could look for that. In any case, it says he submitted some games. I'll maybe take a look for JJZZH. I'll go take a look. Has done a lot. Some of the maiden ones. Yeah, so like about half of the requirements, and then he went up to the next level. Now, bear with me a second. I want to, oh no, I lost the database again. The database, I'm not, so Jendo, if you're out there and you have a game, I can't find it at the moment. It's a whole database saga, technological grief, not worth going into, my friends. Not worth it. Not worth it. Not worth me expounding because I don't even understand the technological grief. So there it is. Okay, so let's do another one. And then we got Sonny. We're going to look at one of Sonny's games right after we look at his progress in the chart here. So there's Sonny. And Sonny went from 921 to 1055. Beautiful. And what you can see with Sonny is he's not clicking. He did do one game at least, so he didn't click it in his box. And then he's done some maiden one, all the maiden ones, some maiden twos, and then a lot of the books, PR, Puzzle Rush. Fantastic. Okay, so let's switch scenes a little bit here. We'll go pop. We'll go, can we go pop, buddy? We'll go pop. And I want to look at Sonny's game here. Now, one of the cool things about what Sonny did here is, and let's flip it so we can see it from his point of view, is that instead of talking about a bunch of theory stuff, which a lot of players at this rating level will do, he's actually putting into words the basics. Fantastic. I really appreciate it. Right? Look at these basic comments. Fantastic. Right? All standard stuff. And notice, one of the things I've said a number of times is if you follow the opening principles, you will end up playing the moves of super GMs. That's just what it is, right? Okay, so D3. And what happens now actually could be described as having learned some opening fallacies. Because if you're used to a Ruy Lopez with, say, castles, then A6, as black does, would be the move. Notice, there's nothing wrong with D3. It's a fine developing move. He has to support E4. Was there other moves? Yes. Was it the most dynamic move? Probably not, but it's fine. So here, a very simple move to play would be something like D6. Bishop C5 could also be a thought, but then there would be some tactics you'd have to see in order to play Bishop C5. Okay. So here we go. He's going to lose a pawn. Okay, good. So now we're down a pawn, and let's see how it goes. And I want to read some of the stuff now, what he's saying. I'm not sure bishop d4 is a terrible move. And one thing I want to say, by the way, these are great notes. When you criticize one of your moves, it's helpful to write out what you think you should have done and why, right? So here, if you don't like bishop g4, well, try to say why you don't like it. Okay. Castles. Queen d7. And you have a bunch of moves here that I guess you would rather do. But some variations would be nice. Now, I think queen d7 is a interesting move, even though it is technically a blunder. Yeah, so what I think he's saying is that e5 is winning the piece. And for the annotations, it would be nice if we saw that. So e5, bishop f3, queen f3, bishop e5, rook e1, and then right. It looks difficult to hold the game. Dojo Rufus. No, I looked up Rufus. I couldn't find any Rufus. I'm going to try to look up Dojo Rufus. I might pause the stream for a second and try to find these other games because, who was the other? That was, yeah. The things were not found. If headcanon, right, if DM Hokey, if you can find a way to get me the game now, because right now I'd have to reboot everything. Same thing with Sagging Rufus. You can send it to me or DM Hokey on Discord, and then I can set it up. All right, so here we go. Rook e1. Good move. I mean, obviously, e5 was better. And I don't know what you're going to do unless you play a move like knight g4. So knight g4 in and of itself can't be all that bad. Okay, now, one of the things that I have stressed is that tactics, people like, here's an argument. He's here on the dojo all the time, on the Discord. They're like, oh, where do I get my tactics? How do I learn how to do tactics? Yada, yada, yada. Well, and the answer I always give them, and people hate this answer, is I say, bro, the tactics are found in your own game. So, for example, does e5 win a piece here? I think it actually does. I think it still wins a piece. Bishop moves e6. If bishop takes bishop f4 followed by, I think, d4, I think it works. Would you want to investigate it, right? Is there a little bit more work to be done to make sure that variation works? Absolutely. So that's an example, really, of where you can see tactics. They're all over the place, and they are in your own games. And the reason it's most important to look at the tactics in your own games rather than, let's say, in a tactics server is because in your own games, you already have an emotional relationship to this, and it was a situation where you or your opponent didn't find something. Okay, so white plays it safe, and now maybe we got a little bit of frisk and tisk. Castles, I like it. Now our rook has some activity on the d file. Now white should probably play d4 followed by e5. Definitely should be developing his stuff on the queen side. Weird. Okay. Now, let me just stress something that I see all the way up to the level of 2,200 FIDE. Players don't understand the value of time. And so in this position, he could play d4, e5, and I want to stress that is not a loss of time because he's getting those are tempo moves. But the other thing that he has to sense is, bro, these guys got to get off the bench. A favorite analogy of mine is if you are a coach and you've got some players and you do not put them onto the floor, then you're just down those players. In this case, you're down pieces. You're down pieces until you figure out that you've got to put them on the game, into the game. Okay, here we go. A3, rook h8. Now you give yourself a funky move, Mark, but I love it, dude. I love it. You put your stuff in the center. Let's go. Okay, finally figuring it out. Okay, a frisky move here would be f5. just trying to get the rook involved. Good move by your opponent. Yep, very nice move. Now, one of the things to see about this position is even though dude gets a trade, and we understand that he is very happy with himself for trading while he's up, and it's certainly a good move, the lack of time will still present itself as a problem in this position. In the endgame. Kind of funky, right? Now, by the way, it's not easy. Not easy to know exactly what you're supposed to do here. Knight e5 comes to mind. Bishop e5 comes to mind. Okay. Let's think for a moment. Knight c3 certainly looks reasonable, but notice that it's not necessarily clear it has any great future on c3. d2 has a little bit more future, then it can go to c4, f3. At least you're getting frisky here, you know. He does this, and you trade. I'd rather see knight e6. Okay, I don't think that's terrible. Definitely terrible. Now let's read what you say. Unsure what to do in this position. Thought this might make my king safer if he tried back rank taker tactics. So one thing I see in a number of games at this level, we're talking about time. Part of the problem is the question of time to do what, right? So this gives us a great example of that. In the opening, for example, with that move a3 that we saw earlier, it's clear from somebody who's being dogmatic, as they should be in the opening, about their tempi, that that's a mistake. But later in the game, it's not always as clear because you have to ask yourself, well, time to do what, right? Well, let's think about it. The king wants to be a fighting piece in the endgame. So putting it on b8 is, I would call it, a negative tempo move. It actually wants to be on c8. Or better yet said, if you were on b8, I would say, well, one of your candidate moves would be king c8, right? Now, granted, it's not easy to know what to do in this position as black. But we want, the main thing we should say to ourselves is we want activity, right? Activity, especially for the rooks, but also the king. So a move like c5 makes a lot of sense. Just making him think about c4. At some point, moving the rook and moving the king. Also ideas. We would want, in general, in these positions, to be active with the rooks. Rook h8 followed by h5, just trying to get our rook active. We want to be active in the endgame. And one of the reasons that we can even win an endgame like this when our opponent is lower rated is because they also don't understand the rules of activity in the endgame. So when you ask yourself, time to do what? The basic rule is activity. And when we're talking about activity, we're not talking about pawns. Pawns aren't people. We're talking about our people. Who are our people? These are our three people. All right, rant's over, I promise. King b8. f4, okay. Good. Okay. Frisky. Now, let me just say for him, for white, like the default move here for white should definitely be to play king f2. But white is a little confused as well in thinking that pawns are people. Pawns are not people, right? So he's playing f5. He's doing great, but king f2 is the default. Now you're getting frisky. Again, if you don't like FG, try to say why, right? He's trying to, nota bene, white is on every turn trying to make his life easier. And by making it easier, he's not actually making it easier, right? Good move. Okay. Okay. Funky, right? Try to say why. And the reason is time is being lost. What's the easiest plan for white? Probably either king h2, threatening this, or rook f2, threatening some kind of invasion, right? Okay, good. Unclear what we're doing. read what you write. Playing fairy tale chess, trying to create a battleground to support the pawn, should have walked away from the table and looked at the position with a clearer mind. Now, notice that when you are playing this ending, the king should be your primary focus. And when you are analyzing the game and trying to find, like, what was my plan? What should have my plan have been during the game? That's when you need to articulate it. In this case, fixing your king. Now here you're in trouble. Let's just be clear. You're probably lost because his king is active. He's up a pawn. And his king is active and yours is not. So he has the advantage of the force count and the active pieces. And that pawn on h4 is looking very lonely. Good move. All right, now let's see if the dude can finish you off. Notice with e5, why is e5 a mistake? He's doing fine, and it's technically maybe even not a mistake, but from, I don't want to call it a classical perspective, whatever you want to call it, the king and the rook should be improving themselves before the pawn. So g4 followed by king g3 comes to mind. Or rook f4 followed by that. Good move. No, look at this. a5, no one knows what you're doing. No one knows what he's doing either. g3, give me a break, boss. Play g4. No, it's so slow. White's writing a novel. Okay. Again, say why you don't like it. Well, that's going to hurt. Or as they say, that's going to leave a mark. Okay. Oh, that wasn't good. You should take with a pound. Oh, what is he doing? Oh. All right. Again, if you like rook e5 better, try to say why. Let me just stress. So what you see in this ending, first of all, what I really like what Sonny's doing is he is saying what he doesn't like. That incredible mistakes are being made in the ending. And that's how you really learn rook endings, right? We have all kinds of cool things in the dojo. Something I'm really proud of is the rook endgame progression. I worked hard on that thing, and that's really to get a sense of the technical positions. That's not for this level of player, though that's for later, right? And here, what the great work he's doing is he's coming to terms in his own words with, like, what are good moves and bad moves in the rook endgame. And then for his next annotation, it would really help to say why. That seems weird. That seems weird. That's mate. Oh. Opponent said he would have offered a draw if I moved to f7. See, this is what I'm talking about. These people don't know what they're doing. All right, so let's talk about this. If he goes to f7, it is lost. And you should write a little bit to say why. And the reason is we park this baby here, and more importantly, get ready to do this so that we'll have two weaknesses here and then this guy, right? It still will be a technical struggle. In fact, it might not even be that easy, but that would be the kind of thing to look at. I'm just reading his notes. Good. This is fantastic, Sonny. This is fantastic. So I feel like this is the kind of work that is necessary to improve. And one of the cool things that you really did, I want to stress, at 1200, you should not be really thinking about the opening database and opening this, opening that. I see so many other players at the 1200 level just freaking out about openings. Not the moment, right? And instead, you're just thinking about chess basics, and that's what you should be doing. Okay, so two things I want to say. A couple people, Sagging Rufus and I think Polsky, have games for me. They need to send those to me if they want me to look at them. All right, let's move on, and we're going to look at some other people in the scoreboard here. So here we go. That's obviously not the scoreboard. However, I know how to fix that. Bang! And we're going to check out, next up is Polsky. Polsky Power, let's check it out. So he started at 1405, Chess.com, up to 1542, 137. Beautiful. 17 points per box clicked. Fantastic. I think he submitted a game. I don't see it yet. In any case, some made in twos. Fantastic. And you can see these made in twos are driving some people insane. But at 11 to 12, the made in twos are good for everybody. By the way, Pruess and Kostya don't even know. They think they're geniuses, so they don't have to do it. But I'm telling them, their path to GM is paved with made in twos. It's not the only thing they have to do, but they need to do them. And then we got a bunch of other work being done by Polsky. Fantastic. You can see it. And yeah, so Polsky is going up to 12 to 1300. And yeah, fantastic, dude. Fantastic. Fantastic growth. All right, let's look at the next one. This next one is Cut Loose. I could not find Cut Loose's games either. Let's take a look here. Where are we? Started at 1926 Lead Chess. Move this here. Lead Chess ratings always confuse me because they're so high. I don't know what's going on with Cut Loose because it seems like it's the exact same rating. I don't know. I don't have the answers. But what seems apparent is he started at a level where he could have already been higher, could have already been in the next cohort anyway. Maybe you could say he started in the wrong cohort. So I don't see any games. Made in twos, though, fantastic. Made in threes, got some of those done as well. Fantastic. Some Puzzle Rush stuff and some end games, fantastic. Okay, so I don't know quite what's going on with Cut Loose and his rating. We'll have to figure that out later. Sagging Rufus, I cannot get the database to work at the moment. So if you send it to me on Discord, it would be much appreciated. Let's check out Echo Wings. We have a game from him annotated by Mr. Stenglein. So we'll check out that in a second. Echo Wings, nothing in terms of games played. A great amount of the made in twos, fantastic. Some of the made in threes, most of them. Puzzle Rush, fantastic. And then some end games. So if we look at Echo Wings, one of the things we can say is there's different paths. When you're not at, let me put it this way, the training program is designed that if you are at your plateau and you do all of the requirements, you will make it to the next level. However, if you are not at your plateau, there will be ways for you to improve without doing everything. And there are different paths. We're seeing, for example, in this case, Echo Wings. One of the things I like about doing this show is to see how people do it. And what Echo has done is basically focused on the tactics, right? The made in twos, the Puzzle Rush stuff, and that's how we got to the next level. And then my intuition is it's not an intuition, it's something I know, is that at some point, he or she will have to do some kind of deeper work, especially with the game review, to make it to the next level. Something also is going on here that I don't understand with the rating, where it's not showing any kind of movement. Something's going on there I don't always understand. Okay, let's do another one. And like I said, we're about to look at some of the games that were submitted. So now we're going to look at the famous Headcanon. I think Headcanon was in the chat and saying that he's got some games, also couldn't find them. I just got a Discord message, so maybe we'll get that. Now let's take a look. Here's Headcanon. 266 rating points, my friends, going from 825 Lichess to 2091. 266, 7 points a box. Amazing. And here you can see he says he's submitting the games. By the way, you can see at the top there, submit annotated PGN text here. That's all you got to do. You're going to just, if you annotate it in Lichess, you can grab the file there and paste it in there. ChessBase, same thing. There's other ways of annotating a game as well. Those two, I think, are the easiest to master. Okay, let's check out what else he did. Postmortems, Mini, fantastic. Polgar, fantastic. Yeah, lots of work, dude. Hand cannon, crushing it. Okay, let me pop over to our business here. I got a game from Sagging Rufus. Now, one of the things about Lichess, this is always oh, shoot. Oh, man, what have I done? No, I've really blown it. I got it. You got to download the chapter, then you got to, maybe I could copy the PGN. That's a new thing. Let's see if that works, my friends. Hold on. Hold on. That might be a new thing. Let's just see if this works. Add games. That would be amazing. Because, oh, wow. Look at that. Bam! Lichess has improved. It was previously not possible to do this. So that was really cool. All right. Let's check out, well, let's start with this. Let's start off with Dojo Rufus right here. As we said before, Dojo Rufus here is, this doesn't look good, Kraai. Here, fix it. Bang. Dojo Rufus went to, from the, he started, I think, at 200 and is now in the 400, 600 cohort. One thing that we are doing, it's a little bit of work, but we're going to try to get it done before a 1-year anniversary, is to split 400, 600 into 400, 500, and 500, 600, simply because at the beginning of the dojo, we weren't even sure what was going on at that rating range, and now we have a much bigger, greater sense of it. And 400, 600, even though you might call that a beginner range or whatever, it's too big of a spread. Gaining 100 points is such a big deal. All right, let's go to the analysis. Let's go up. And there we go. Let's check it out. So, good. I love when people are just doing the annotations that came to mind for them and not some theory Bishmiri stuff. Good. Okay. And black takes with a knight here. And taking with the pawn is considered more reasonable, but this is fine. And one thing to say about this position, by the way, I don't know why ED4 would be a mistake. You got to take the knight, boss. You got to take the knight. The thing to say about this position is kind of interesting, is that white has now a small advantage, and the reason is that it kind of shows an exception to the rule. We tell ourselves, and this is not dumb, that bring your queen out early is a mistake. Searching for Bobby Fischer. Don't bring your queen out early, Josh, right? But because the knights have been traded off, the queen is kind of nice on d4. Doesn't mean black's toast or anything, but the queen has a nice commanding position on d4. If we could play knight c6 and whack her, then that would be a bad thing, of course. Okay. Yeah. Bishop e7, mistake, because you're hanging your g-pawn. Right? Does he see it? He doesn't see it. Okay. In general, you need to play d6 followed by knight f6, right? That's what you're going to need to do in this position. All right. One thing I want to stress is that getting out of Plato's cave, okay, which is the region below 1,000 FIDE. And again, we created a universal rating thing at the dojo. It's mildly weird when it's under 1,000 because FIDE doesn't really have ratings below 1,000, but that was our way of translating Lichess, Chess.com, USCF, and the whole business. We had to come up with something, right? In any case, the deal with below 1,000 is your primary struggle is going to be not to hang stuff, right? Like we're hanging the pawn on G7 here, and then white not seeing it. Okay. What should white play? He should play E5. Why? Because we would then be undeveloping the knight from F6. You'd have to move somewhere unpleasant, probably back. Okay. Weird. What was correct? D6 or castles, right? Why? Because you need to get your bishop on C8 out, right? One thing I want to stress is a game you can play at whatever level you are is you could teach somebody how to play chess. And then you could teach them the principles of opening play pretty quickly. And one of the interesting things about this game is if you just whack them on the hand a couple times, you watch them play a couple practice games, you whack them on the hand when they break the rules, it comes very quickly that they're making GM moves. So you'd whack them on the hand with C6 and you say, Baus, you need to get your bishop out. You need to castle. Those are your priorities, right? And in that way, you can really get somebody to play star moves. Okay, F4. One thing we should say about what white should do is E5. Again, undeveloping the knight on F6. And F4, not a developing move, right? Not a developing move. Castles, if you don't have E5, then castles is the default. Again, if you teach somebody else these principles, they will become ingrained in you, and you'll understand, like, oh, this is what Krai's saying with all this opening stuff. Doesn't matter, boss. Just follow the principles and you're going to be doing fine. Okay, frisky. What do I want? Either D6 or castles. Now we're getting a fight. And now you play C5, the most frisky of the Tisky. Knight D7 certainly makes some sense. Check to the miserable king. Okay. Now, what do you want to do, though? Knight D7, queen D5. No bueno. So you got to try this. Okay. And now you got to move your knight, Baus. And you're in trouble. It's true. A little fancy, but probably playable. Check to the miserable king. Okay. So the fact is you're now in trouble. Now I want to stress, the reason you're in trouble here is not because of tactics. Yes, there's tactical problems, and there probably not anything you can do about it at this point. But it's because you fell behind in the development that this nastiness happened to you. Okay? Check to the miserable king. Now, the truth is, I don't know what to do. It's not an easy situation because your knight on E4 is hanging. If you do this, excuse me, pop. Oh, excuse me. This, if you do this, you correctly see this knight C7 move, and then you're toast, right? So one interesting question would be like, well, what should you do? And it's not a pleasant situation, but I'm guessing you got to do something nasty like F5 to try to hold on to your knight. Okay. Check to the miserable king. And that seems fine. Taking on E4 is also fine. Yeah, okay. Okay. Whoa! I'll make my own open file. I like that comment. Okay, bam! Oh, what's going on? No one knows. Okay. Now, one thing that's interesting here is Black is clearly playing with plans and confidence that I don't quite get it myself at this point. But he's down a piece, and that's the most salient thing of what's happened in the position. Now we're exposed to knight f6. Does he find it? Yep. Nota bene, taking the knight is a bigger material gain than taking the rook. And, well, it's not rook d7 as a mate, but we might want to think about it. Yeah. Okay. Good move. King takes f8. I have to take. I like the double exclam. Okay. All right. So there it is. Great. So yeah, what we can see, Sagging Rufus here, is that you're in the Plato's cave, right? And the games that are, what's happening is that you are hanging stuff. And you're playing against an opponent who's hanging stuff. And so the most important thing at this level is for you to focus on not hanging stuff, right? Okay. And furthermore, that I think one of the nice things about the opening principles is it's far easier to learn, to master, than the art of not dropping stuff. Not dropping stuff takes a long time. And even you see in my blitz run or whatever, everybody's still gonna drop stuff. Magnus still drops stuff, okay? So that never it goes away, but the opening principles, you can get it. Like you can say to yourself, all right, here's the principles, here's how I follow them, right? And it's very doable, very accomplishable. Okay, good. Let's see what else we got. I think Headcanon might be sending me a game, though so far I haven't found it. Message request, hold on. There we go, accept. Here we go, we do have a game from Headcanon. Let's go over here. And now, one of the amazing things is, Lichess fixed its business. I just discovered it now. It's amazing. It used to be I had to open the game in like ChessBase or something else and then reload it up here. But now, boom, I can just copy it. All right, all right, all right, all right. My life has become easier, my friends. All right, let's take a look at Headcanon's game. And here we go, pop. Jesse, can you make your overlay a little bit better? I don't know what you're talking about, Boss. I don't know what you're talking about. I tried to get DM Hokey to make me a thing, but he's like a NASCAR driver, and he stuck all kinds of things on my space. So I do not have anything better. I need all the space I can get. If you can make me a better overlay that does not steal my space, Braden, okay, then that's okay. But what I really want to say is I need all of the space. I know that people don't understand this, but I need all of the space for people to see the notes that are being produced by the peoples here. Okay, so whatever you're making, Braden, there better be a lot of space for the people's notes. In fact, if I'm going to do it, if you're going to make me one, I'm going to make myself smaller. There we go, smaller. And we're going to make the notes bigger, because that's the thing I really want to highlight. In fact, let's do a trick. No, I almost got rid of Headcanon's name, but no, let's leave the guy's name up there. All right, here we go. Let's read what he says, and we'll flip it to see it from his perspective. This game was harder to win than it needed to be. I had managed time pretty well for a change, but allowed a lot of queen and rook activity in a winning position. I think it might have been lost at some point. 3 things to learn. Wary of tactics, when winning, alternate move orders, and don't resign. All right, here we go. Fine. Interesting. Okay. So let's just say that this is sometimes called the Yobava London. And e4 would have been an interesting move there. Let's do a little bit of opening theory. I know. I had a student, and he played bishop f4 in the London. I think he still does. And on c5, he came up with this amazing thing. Not on his own. He found it on like one of those nasty YouTube videos that has been poisoning his chess since day one. But he found this great idea with e4 pop and d5. It's a weird looking thing, but it's genius because what it is an improved Albin counter gambit. Let me explain. So we get this fascinating position. And you can see if black had the bishop out, we would have the same position, right? But so black is up, it would be white is up a tempo on that Albin counter gambit position. Okay. So, I think in order to play this move e4, you would need to be familiar basically with this idea, right? Yeah. Okay, so e3. Let's just talk some basics. The knight c3, controversial since the beginning of time because you're blocking in the c-pawn. Does that mean it's a bad move? No, but it's a situation where you have to be hypersensitive to that pawn's needs, i.e. it's not playing in the center, right? And why e4 creates some interesting drama that maybe obviates the c2 pawn's need to be in the game. Okay. Mistake. Now, you get the E file, and there was no need for black to give that to you with moves like something else, with moves like something else. Yes, some other move. Okay, funky. As you write, bishop e2 is also good. This is a good move, though. f3, because you're dominating the knight on f6 when you're doing so. Now, in this position, you're going to have to be creative, like a lot of these Yobava Londons. Let's see what you do. Funky. Yeah. So the main reason it's wrong is that you're moving a developed piece twice. However, let's just say that when you're in these unconventional positions, not always exactly clear to know what to do. For example, this move's g4 that you give. Maybe I prefer rather to play something like queen d2 and castles long, and then just see what he does. See what he does, and we'll go from there. The issue with the position, I love this position for white, but the issue is a little bit unconventional development. So you're going to need, obviously, this guy's a little weird, right, because it's in the way of the c-pawn. This guy's got to figure his life out. This guy's got to figure his life out. But the reason you have a nice advantage is a couple things. One, you're up 2 tempi. Obviously, it's your move, but also he owes you one, right? So that's the main reason you have an advantage. But the next reason is this f3 pawn's kind of nice against the knight, and g4, g5 at some point is a cool idea, not just to get some kind of initiative against the king, but to undevelop the knight on f6. Good. c3. Okay. So now what we should say is that you have a Carlsbad structure on your hands where you would like to make the claim that your light square bishop is amazing. A problem for you here is that your pawn on f3 is blocking the knight's natural development to f3. And that was always the case, but in this particular structure, you would really like to have the knight on e5. So I have not seen the rest of the game, but what we'll see is kind of an interesting question is, does white realize the peril of his knight and find some kind of creative way to fix it? And the reason I'm going to bring it up is, like, we'll say it as a test, an interesting question for him, is white's doing fine here, but he has a bad piece. Does he sense the bad piece, and does he do something creative about it, right? I bring it up because I think in a lot of these positions, something I see is that players will neglect their bad piece and play with their pretty pieces. The pretty pieces then get traded off. What are the pretty pieces? The bishops now, right? Pretty pieces get traded off, and then we still haven't fixed the knight. And one of the reasons that it happens this way is they haven't played strong enough opposition to punish them. And a lot of times, weaker opposition will fix the bad piece for them, right? And they don't even realize it's happening. And they don't realize, oh, I'm getting punished because of the bad piece. Now, does headcanon fix his piece? I don't know. We're about to find out. But to my mind, for example, a nice plan, we'll see, would be to think about doing this in the future. All right, let's see how he plays. Queen b6. I want queen e2. Good. g6. And he says that's kind of funky. I think, by the way, that he should play e6 and bishop d6 here. That's my sense of how he should play. He should be mostly fine. And so the problem with queen b6 is it's not clear that it belongs there. And it takes away one of the possible plans for him, namely a6, b5, b4, some kind of minority attack. That doesn't mean that he has to do it, but queen b6 takes that plan away from him. Okay. So I think g6 is a little weird, but if he was going to play e6, again, I would rather have kept the queen on d8. Castles. Strange. Strange. Because now you are going to give black potential counter chances on the queen side. So what was the most natural? Knight h3, castles, knight f2, and then organize at some point the knight d3, e5. Frisky. Frisky headcanon. Bishop g7, h4. Okay. Some people do play h5 here. That I can guarantee. One thing I don't like about what White's doing is he still hasn't fixed the knight on g1, right? So whatever we're going to do against black, we will have to fix the knight. Okay? It doesn't matter. We got to fix the knight. All right, black has several choices here. What should he do? It's not immediately obvious. Knight h5 is a thought. Castles is frisky. But let's give his castles a chance. Okay. Again, why don't I like it? Because he's not fixing the knight on g1. Okay, and now knight d7 is very frisky because he's claiming that he doesn't have to worry about the h-file. Now, one thing I want to say about this h-file business is obviously it can lead to a mating attack for white, but more importantly, it's allowing the rook on h1 to get involved in the game. And if the rook on h1 is involved, then white's failure to fix his knight is not as extreme, right? Okay. A very basic way for him to play the position too, in addition to h5, is at some point just to play rook c8, threatening knight takes d4, and try to get some juice going against the white king. Good move. Now he says it plays itself from here. Let's see. Okay. So black has sacrificed a pawn. And important to note that in these positions with opposite side castling, the pawn isn't going to be that important because someone is going to get mated. And to that end, I'm not entirely sure that we should be taking on d5. Black has reasonable chances to save this game in this position because the knight on g1 isn't working. Because the knight on g1 isn't working. And because it's very hard to mate somebody when bishop on g7 is controlling all the dark squares, and it's impossible to get rid of it with our own dark square bishop. Notice that the bishop on b5 is also not really working. Okay, so he boldly takes the pawn. Interesting position. Okay. One good news for white is that the bishop on b5 is preventing rook e8. And black plays queen e6. Let's read what Headcanon writes here. He says on queen e6, not sure exactly where I went wrong in moves 14 to 17, but I feel the initiative slipping a bit, and I'm trying to be careful with piece coordination. So interesting. Notice too that you said earlier that the position now plays itself. And you can ask yourself, well, GM Kraai, why is it hard for white? Well, it's about the knight, boss. Now, I hadn't looked at this game, but I had a feeling. I was like, did dude fix this knight? Because I've seen this before. I've seen this hero movie before. Does he fix the knight? No, sometimes they don't fix the knight. Sometimes they don't fix the knight. Okay. Okay. Again, I did a video called The Road to 2100. This is, of course, 2100 FIDE. And I did all of these videos, every rating band in the Dojo training program. And there, you could talk about it for other rating bands as well. But that one I thought was particularly interesting about using examples of players in that rating level who were not sensing the problem of the knight. Okay, by the way, this is a very interesting position for black to try to think about what he should do here. It feels to me like he should be able to find something where he can get actually a very strong initiative. Because again, the pawn isn't the big thing here for him. It's the who gets the initiative. And the knight on g1 isn't in yet. So I don't actually know exactly what to do yet. I just know that I'm terrified here for the white player. A6 comes to mind. Let's give his move a try. Queen e6, queen d2. Yeah, your pieces are all funky because you stole the pawn and you didn't fix your knight. That seems really weird, right? Okay. By the way, the couple variations here we should be talking about. One of them is, can black get away with bishop h6? My answer is probably not, but we've got to look at this variation. Probably not because of that. Oh, criminy, what happened? Oh, chess.com lost its business. Okay, boom, boom, boom. It's not letting me play HG. Chess.com might have lost it. In any case, HG looks hard to meet for black. But that's definitely a variation now to consider. Another move that seems like we want to talk about it is a6, because it's difficult to find squares for the bishop, and knight c4 is on the agenda. Yeah, I don't like it. But what's interesting is even here you have some grief for your coordination. Now, does h6 win on the spot? One grief is that if bishop takes, we have rook d6. If bishop h8, I'm assuming that's a good thing for us. And bishop f6 just looks pretty funky, especially after rook d6. But okay, let's see what happens here. Got his knight in. Got his knight in, bows. Okay. Move 20. The knight's coming in. This move f3 I don't like it. because there's so many things going on in the position. One of them is the knight finally getting fixed. Uh-oh, that doesn't bode well. That doesn't bode well. And now he talks about queen e3. Okay, good. Good move. Seems like we could have just played queen f2, right? I don't understand f2. Okay, wait a second. Now I'm a little confused. So the idea, I guess, so this is getting rich, by the way. This is where we need some variations in Canada. Is queen g1, bishop f1, I assume is your intention. a6, now we could just play bishop f1. King c2, check to the miserable queen. Now things, notice, they've gotten really complicated. They didn't need to be. Queen f6. Uh-oh, this is getting spicy. Oh, wait. Queen g1, bishop f1, check to the queen, check to the king. Oh no, rook f1, king b3, what's going on? What's going on, boss? Okay. It's a hard game to think about what the hell happened. Let's review this game for a second. Okay, so we get this Yobava stuff. Let's just talk a little bit about some of the problems when you play unconventionally. It's hard to know where your pieces go, right? And here, bishop g4 completely wrong. Queen d2 would also be fine here, but f3 is okay. And now this thing where you're still fundamentally okay. Maybe black's equal now. c3, okay. Queen b6, as we said, was poor. g6, I don't know. Funky. Again, if you can focus on fixing your knight, you're going to have a great position. If you can just imagine like getting the knight to d5, you're going to be great. Look at those bishops. The queen on b6, not really doing much, you know? Oh, that's frisky. Oh, that's frisky. Not fixing the knight. Okay. I've said it enough times. I'm not going to say it anymore. And you're absolutely right. h5, better. Much better than what he did. However, this knight d7, it's not entirely unreasonable. And one interesting question is here, first of all, let's just admit, h5, when you say it plays itself from here, it's no, we're not even close to done because the knight's not in yet. You could prevent the move e5 with bishop takes c6 and then play h5. And we can talk about that, or yeah, that would be a variation to look at in your analysis. And what I want to stress here, something you could do as a takeaway, is initiative is always important, but with opposite sides castling, the value of the initiative rises dramatically, right? So, and that's what's happening here. When you give up your nice bishop on f4, you then lose a lot of your ability to attack the king, the black king, because we might need to get rid of the bishop on g7. So a variation here to think about would be snap, and now because of our pressure on e5, I think dude needs to take, and now we can consider both the moves hg and queen h2, playing for the caveman attack that you aspired to play. hg looks hard to meet, as does queen h2, right? So, and why did you play bishop e5? Because you thought that pawns were people. right? And you were like, oh, I'm going to win that pawn. But now, your knight still isn't fixed. Now we have bishops of opposite color, which means that his dark square control will make it difficult for you to penetrate over there on the king side. Okay. Good. All right, that was a great game. That was a great game, Headcanon. And so we're going to be watching your progress, and I think this annotation, good annotation. And so when I give feedback here, if I quibble with your annotations, I'm just trying to give mostly, maybe some insight into the game, but mostly like, oh, this is where you could have done some more annotations in your game. Okay, let's look at the other games we have still to look at. So we looked at Sonny's game, and we got to look at Polsky Power. Now, Polsky Power, I believe this is not his annotations. Correct. So this is his opponent's annotations. Let me just look. People are yelling at me on the Discord. Let's just go check out what they're saying. Braden sending me big old things. No, those don't work, Braden. There's not enough space for the player notes. I understand what you're saying. Should we do it? Oh, criminy. Criminy. Oh, God. Oh, no. Oh, gosh. It's good. No, it's going to take forever, Braden. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it, Powers. Not doing it. We will do it another time. So, let's take a look at this. This is Polsky Power. And pop, pop. Let's say right here that both players are following big time opening theory. Maybe they've done some Chessable courses. And is it beneficial to them? Interesting question. Okay. Now, for example, knight gf6, and he says the typical book move would be e6 to support queen a5. It's a small thing, my friend. It's a small thing. Okay. Many GMs, for example, have played knight gf6. Now, what is interesting about this is that when you want to talk about the book move, it might be good to say like why this book move is better than a different move. And the actual reason for e6 over knight gf6 is that if white can maintain the bishop on f4, then we're going to call that a better version than the main line where the queen gets to c7, right? On c7, it's a little bit more annoying. However, even here, queen a5 check to the miserable king gives some interesting questions, which could, I believe there's some famous Karpov games even went like this, and then we're back. We're back in the business after queen c7. Okay, so castles. Let's read what he writes. I've achieved my, by the way, this is not Polsky Power writing. Polsky Power, I couldn't find a game of his, but I do want to cover one of the games of the graduates if I can find them. I've achieved my goal position out of the opening. I should say why. From here, black's plan will be to put a knight on d5 and trade down to an endgame if they can occupy the d file, and keep my g3 knight stuck defending the h5 pawn. Let me say something about that. One of my favorite positional tests, actually, we're talking about the bad piece, is in positions like this, how long will it take white to figure out that the knight on g3 is poor to move him to e4? The pawn on h5 is inconsequential to the weight of the need of that knight on g3 to go to e4. Yeah. And it was a hard thing, actually, for me to understand. I didn't really have a coach when I was a kid. And let's just look at that position with we can call the main line. And we could say, let's say, castles, e6, castles, excuse me. There's a million different things. Well, actually, let's start here. There's a million different things white could do. King b1, rook e1. and knight e4. And it was very hard for me to understand as a kid that this was the right move because the knight on g3 is poor and needs to get fixed. So this is a great example of what we were talking about before, of the need to fix the bad piece. So it's important to see that from the perspective of what we're doing in the opening, the knight on g3 is not stuck defending the pawn. That's the least of our worries. The knight's got to get back to play knight e4. And look at this. He does it. Beautiful. But he's doing it to support the g5. Now, okay, it's good to play g4, g5, but even better to play knight e4. The reason, by the way, the knight e4 is a good example, I think, of what we're talking about fixing the bad piece is there's a lot of reasons not to play knight e4. We're seemingly letting black catch up on development. We are helping him trade off some of his pieces. The knight on f6 and d7 aren't the prettiest things ever. But the reason we're doing it is to say, Baus, that guy is not good. He's got to go. Right? All right. Now, when I was a kid, it was unacceptable to castle short in these positions. Totally unacceptable. But you see it sometimes nowadays because it can be very difficult for white to organize the g4, g5 break. Now, by the way, let me just say, the rating level here of what we're seeing with both these players and the opening knowledge shown is too big of a discrepancy, right? So I know people don't like it. They want me to talk about openings and say the openings are all important. But I think what we're going to see is we're seeing very high-level things here. And my guess is as we progress, we're going to see some far more basic level mistakes. At least that's my experience as a coach. Here we go. Rook dg1. Why is this weird? Because the rook wants to be on d1, right? Then you ask yourself, well, what should he do? Well, it's become an interesting question. And the one to analyze in the game, honestly, is what does it look like if you just go for it now? It's an interesting question. I don't know. It'd have to be analyzed. My gut feeling, though, is that's the move we should be looking at, g4. Now, why is this funky? Because the rook on d1 was doing something, right? Okay, let's look. All right, so black has his own choices. I think the easy one is to take on e4, right? Take on e4, probably knight f6. If you want to do knight d5, then play knight e4 and knight f6, d5. Given that white's abandoned the center, another plan would be knight e4, queen a5, and then maybe queen f5 next to negate, if we get the exchange of queens, to negate all this g4, g5 stuff. Okay. Bishop d2, good. c5. g4, brilliant, brilliant. Let's read what he writes. Not wasting any time to start the attack. My main advantage right now is a lead in development in space, and black will eventually equalize with enough time. Well said. Well said. And black now makes a mistake that has everything to do with time, but he is in a difficult situation, for sure, in this position. Again, we talk about attack on opposite wings. I'm talking about how the initiative is the most important thing, so material means much less. With that in mind, it might have been a good practical idea for black to try to throw a pawn at white, just to get a little bit of initiative before we get mated. Because if we do nothing, we are going to get mated. This is one of the few things I know about looking at this g5 thing that's coming. Okay, so f6. It's a mistake primarily just because of time, right? He analyzes g5, a very violent move. Let's see what he says about dc5. The intent of this move is to get rid of my e4 knight to unblock the queen's route to g6. By the way, f6, I'm starting to get some sympathy for it. You know, at least you make white pay for g5 if he's going to do it. Okay. I I think I'm okay with DC. I think so. I'm not 100%. You could, maybe we should make a strong case that you should have taken with the knight. Because black doesn't have to recapture immediately himself. He should very much think about moves like rook c8 and queen c7. Because we don't want to play b4. And it's true that when you do this, this is helping white open up to the queen. And now you went full ballistic with g5. Holy bagajolis. Whoa, boss. Take it easy. Does bishop h6 work? That'd be a question I would want to answer. The answer is probably. You'd need to do some analysis. But g6 or bishop h6 would be the move that I would want to look at in the analysis. Now, again, when I go over these games, I don't necessarily go over the full variations because we could spend maybe a while thinking about bishop h6. But I'm pointing out what white should think about for a while when he does the annotations, or she does the annotations. I don't know if I believe in this g5 move, because now you're activating the rook on f8, and you're going ballistic on this. Yeah, and I think you're toast here. Yeah, I think it's all over. Now, does queen f6 do it? It looks good. Queen f6 looks good. We're not done with the analysis, though, because, as you point out, h6 is that's a mean move. And then we're not done yet. That's a good move. That's logical. Oh, man, spicy. Spicy. Let's look too in this position. By the way, I want to stress something over here. So in this position, you're in full control, and there's no need to go crazy with g5. So bishop h6 would be the move to look at, like I'm saying. But there are so many other moves you can do here as preparatory moves. You can think about knight h4. You can think about queen e4. You can think about c4, right? And that either with or without queen e4. You can think about king b1. You're in control. Yeah. Other moves are possible here too. One problem though is for us if knight f6, our bishop on c5 is hanging. It's funny. He's not even. One thing that's kind of cool. He's not even thinking about taking the bishop on c5. I would take the bishop on c5. Because you're winning the game positionally in that case. Are you winning this? Probably. There's still a little bit of work to be done, though. A guy plays queen e7. Should definitely think about the move bishop f8. And then it becomes a force count question. Though I take it back, h7 is winning the rook on f8, f7, so you can't do that. So what am I saying? With rook c5, you're in full control. After h6, maybe the guy's going to find some kind of way out of this mess. Queen e7. And now you say hg is a miscalculation, which looks true. However, let's just say that if you got to this position, it's not 100% that you're going to find something here. Now, I assume what you're saying is that after bishop c3, you think the position is winning. And maybe it is, but it's still really complicated. For me, anyways. I'll just say it's really complicated for me. And he's got several moves here besides rook a f8. Okay. Holy majolis. Okay. Now, maybe, by the way, this bishop c3 move is a computer move. It's the kind of balls of steel move that a computer might find, right? Yeah. Okay. HG is, of course, the natural human move, but then we needed an answer to that. And king f8, amazing. And now, what happened here? Something happened that I don't understand. So now you're winning again, right? Confusing things. Okay. Let's read what the conclusions are. Black had a small error in the opening that allowed white to achieve their middle game uncontested. Black severely weakened the light squares around their king and did not prevent white from breaking open the kingside pawns. Black may have missed the critical defensive moves that would have otherwise spoiled white's attack. Okay, so let me put it in a slightly different narrative. I think the reason that you think you got an advantage in the opening is because he did something unconventional in terms of opening moves, right? But when you think about what Black's done, he hasn't actually, at this point, broken principles of the opening. We might say he's worse, but he hasn't broken any principles. And yes, it's balls of steel to play castle short, but it still might be a feasible thing, right? Because he hasn't broken any principles yet. Okay, so here, what I think is interesting is I'm going to guess, actually, if you went to the database, that you'd have some GM play G4. And it's the kind of move that maybe the computer approves of, maybe not, but it's the, let's call it the move we'd first want to look at, because we absolutely need to get our initiative started onto the king. This move, incorrect, because, right, it's not sure, we need the rook there. All right. And then I agree, knight d5, not so hot. And in particular, we think about force count here, right? So black needs to get rid of as many people as possible before he gets mated, right? And this position, I can say, will still be resilient for black after knight e4. And I want to say I'm very happy that you did this. I think that's great. But the rest, notice here you go on like an adrenaline-filled frenzy. You go on an adrenaline-filled frenzy now after this move. This would be a position really to spend some time analyzing as well. I think, for example, bishop h6 directly might be very interesting and compelling. Again, I'm not 100%. That's still some work to be done there. Okay, great game. Let's look at the next one. Oh, we got some games to look at, Kraai. You don't got the time, Bows. You got the time. Okay, we got two games by hero of the dojo, Jack Stenglein. And one thing I want to stress again is Jack Stenglein is a hero of the dojo because he has helped figure out the dojo scheduler so people can organize game analysis sessions, so they can organize sparring sessions, the whole business, and he's done help with the scoreboard. And without people like that behind the scenes, we wouldn't get it done. So big part of like our first year in the Chess Dojo has been figuring out technical aspects like that. And Jack's a hero. We've had other heroes as well, but Jack's one of the main heroes. So let's check out his game. By the way, it's Echo Wings that has actually been a graduate, but I couldn't find any of Echo's annotations. So I do want to look at one of their games, and so we're going to use Jack's annotations here. Okay. This isn't as bad as it looks. F3 does break the principles of the opening. So, pop. E5, totally reasonable. There you're going to transfer into a French. Okay, interesting. Breaking the principles, but we get it. You're trying to hold on to the E4 square. Could you have played bishop E3? It's funny you consider bishop e3 to be passive. To me, when you're playing a3, not developing, that seems a little bit funky to me. All right. Now, dude is determined and breaks. All right. Let's read what you write, Jack. This move initially surprised me, but now I think it makes sense as black has a lot of trouble developing otherwise. Yeah, we get a really spicy position. And one thing we should say is the reason it's possible at all is because you haven't developed. And whenever somebody plays a3, then we start saying the phrase action on the wing is met by action in the center, which is what black does here. Frisky. Now I would think that CD gives a clear advantage to black. Let's see what he does. Okay. A little bit weird. Yes, knight c6 looks like black is doing more than fine. Okay. So actually very similar to the game we saw earlier where white, I think it was head cannon, took a pawn on d5 in an opposite sides castling position. Here we have knight takes d5 as well. Now this one, we're arguably obliged to take the thing because black is about to take the initiative with knight c6. So let's take a look. Here we get our interesting position. I don't know who is better here in terms of like if you turned on the machine, but I'm pretty sure I would rather be black because black is the one who has the juice on the development, right? So something like knight c6, bishop e6, put a rook on c8 and try to start the party. Definitely, I'd rather see queen d6. We would definitely want to trade. And then you want bishop knight d7 instead of knight c6 so that bishop d3 doesn't come with a tempo. Yeah, I have some sympathy with that. But notice, though, that bishop d3, it is in the way of your rook. Okay. Now things are very concrete. Let's read what you write. Here I look very carefully for any dangerous discoveries with the knight, but did not see anything. And a3 turns out to be useful. Yes. h4. Now, from the previous example, I want you to play knight f4, right? I want you to fix your knight before you go on an adventure with h4. But this does look very dangerous for him, and here he needs a good move. And in fact, like part of the problem with rook ac8 was like, boss, well, what's your intention now, right? Rook fe8, weird. Okay. Interesting position. If I was black, I would consider the move b5 or knight a5 to try to get some kind of juice going on the queen side. Knight a5 looks like the most compelling. So I have these two ideas. Is white still better? Maybe. But you can see why I want knight f4 instead of h4 because if I can get rid of some of his junk, I might be able to consolidate my position and just be better. I don't want to get mated myself. So right, rook fe8. What's the fundamental problem? Black isn't appreciating that there's a time issue. He has got to find a way to get at our king before he is toast. Okay. Queen g5 doesn't scare me too much, Jack, but okay. Bam! Holy camoles. Nice move, boss. Nice move. This was a good move, although I played it too quickly. I got excited about the tactic and played it again without considering queen g5. The good news for us is queen g5 can be met with f4. Check to the miserable king. All right, and now we're going to stop looking at this game. So, Gives you a good indication of where echo is. Also, Jack's beautiful notes. I really want to stress something here. Jack is doing exactly what the program wants, talking about what's going on in the thought process, right? Okay, and they're doing postmortems. Fantastic. Everything's beautiful here. Yeah. One thing I will stress too is I feel like if Jack was playing more principled chess just in the openings instead of thinking about the openings, I think it would help him avoid things like f3 and then a3, right? Okay. Let's do another one of Jack's games. This is, again, Jack is not the person who graduated today. I initially pulled up this one because I didn't find a game from Headcanon, but let's check it out. So this is from Jack Singland's perspective. Headcanon, though, is the graduate today. So let's take a look. All right, usually the standard move here is bishop d3. This was Fischer's innovation over bishop e2. Austrian attack. Okay. Black can do a number of different things here. Bishop e3, let's say, is weird because now you have to worry about knight g4 stuff. There's a lot of things I don't understand here. My guess is that white's center is going to get whacked now after knight g4. Let's see if that happens. Okay. So I think knight c5 is probably fine. In principle, I want to see this line, de, fe, and then something like queen a5, where we should be able to blow the center apart. In general, with a hyper-modern opening like this, the way to win is when they expand too quickly. With e5, you want to crack them open. And the problem really with dc5 is that you're neglecting this bishop. The bishop wants to be active. This move isn't wrong, though. You got a great game here. Your bishop comes out next. Everybody's happy. Now, as we saw in the last game, Headcanon doesn't care. He doesn't care about his king bows. He's going to castle long. Okay. So queen b6 is definitely a mistake, and I'm going to assume that he missed knight d5. Queen a5 is a very natural move, after which I think white's in big trouble. Bishop e6 will come. Yeah, we just have the initiative. And anytime ed happens, we just thank white for opening up our bishop on g7. Now, queen b6, by the way, is very tricky because he's threatening knight b3. But he's ended up tricking himself because that knight, now knight d5, and we got an issue. Okay, next moment that's interesting here is definitely you should play queen a5 anyway, despite the fact that knight e7 is check. Because after queen d8, you're just losing all your initiative. And queen a5, even if you lose some pawns, he's still got to worry about getting mated. Okay, now this would be white's moment to think about other things to do. Not 100% on bishop c4. Frisky. All right, here we go. Okay. Now the problem with e6, by the way, I was thinking about e6 too, is that when he plays bishop c4, you can't play d5 yet because c5 is hanging. But the variation, Jack, that you should consider here would be here, 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 and then maybe you are, in fact, a genius, you know? Is queen a5 wrong, though? Let's see, let's read what he writes. I think this move was a slight inaccuracy, as it did allow his queen to infiltrate on e7, but it also opened my bishop up. Yep. And right, let's just say from his point of view, He wants to prevent your e6, d5. I get it. So this is where queen a5 I'm not sure is such a bad move, because if h5, then we can start calculating e6, right? And then it's not clear to me what's going on. Your unopposed dark square bishop, of course, is the reason why you might not get mated in this position. You might get mated. You might get mated here, but there's a reason why maybe, maybe you won't get mated. Pop, pop. Looks nice for you. Looks like you will be the one with the initiative. H5, queen b4. I'm not sure I like queen b4. Let's just say the move that first comes to mind would be rook ac8 or rook fe8. The queen has a job already on a5. Your rooks must come into the game. So notice what happened there, Jack, is you lost critical time with this queen b4 move. This position, very rich, hard to say what's going on. And if you play the perk, this is the kind of thing that you're going to get all the time. I did this aggressive repertoire speed run, and I didn't know what to do as black, so I played the perk. A lot of games like this. It's kind of definitely fun in blitz chess. In principle, I like your position. And if you were going to play queen b4, maybe rook fe8 first, with the thought that, oh, if the queen leaves f4, then I'll get some juice on queen b4. Now, grief for you could be, well, what about queen d2? Maybe. Maybe. A piece of good news for you, though, is imagine rook ac8. What is he actually going to do? And is he worried about bishop b2? Maybe he should be, right? And so this would be a point to analyze a little bit, and it might go like this. And we got ourselves a real interesting situation. But I'm going to guess that our main move here is knight a4. And what is happening in this position? I don't know. I don't know, Bows. I don't know. I don't know. It's a real spicy one. Hard to say. Hard to say. White's got some real questions to answer, though. Does queen h3 work? You know, this is the perk at its best, or its worst, however you want to characterize it. This is what it looks like, but it's not this, because here you're losing time. Good. Good. Okay, knight g5, indeed. It's hard to imagine that you can survive after knight g5. Also hard to imagine that you're going to survive here. All right, knight a4 finally comes. Good. Good. Now, one of the things that's great, what you're saying about how you're giving up mentally on the game, is it feels like you're going to get mated, right? But like a key takeaway for everybody to take away from here, a takeaway that you take away, is that the unopposed bishop on g7, absolute monster on the defense, right? And it's the kind of thing that you have to experience it a couple times before you realize from either side that that's a key asset to the black position, and maybe he's not going to get mated. All right, head cannon goes for it. Bam! Holy molies. Don't play king f6, Bows. All right. Yeah, this is interesting. Boom. Check to the miserable king. King f8. Bishop back. Check to the miserable king. This is gonna get a little fancy here. Let's see how it goes. Pop. And now you got a winning endgame, huh? A little weird knight c5 because there's things that make my head spin when knight takes d6. Beautiful. However, is it beautiful? Check to the miserable king. Okay. And now, what do we got? Holy bajolas. We got the beginning of the game now. Jack, I thought this was going to end soon. I was going to be done. Jack. What have you done? Let's go back, Jack. So, this position, we're going to say, in this position, you are at least clearly better. And the simple move to play would be rook e7. Is that correct, Amundo? It's still complicated, isn't it? I'm beginning to appreciate how complicated this position is. The other move that we could consider is rook. Wow, this is hard. This one's actually tough. Hold on. Did it have to be like this? Hold on. Now, this is too interesting. So, bishop b3. Is this as complicated as Jack is making it seem? I'm not sure. It's complicated. Let's say we played rook e2, rook f7, king e8, rook h8. Well, now we're killing him, right? I think we are killing him. Let's take a look. It's definitely full spice level. There's no doubt about it. Whew, my head's spinning. But the good news is the initiative is kind of done for this dude. Something like this. Whew. Again, the spice level is pretty real here, right? But that would be a variation to go over. Again, in these games, I don't want to go over, trying to find improvements to the game. Well, we'll look a little bit, give some feedback, but mostly I want to look at like places where the annotations themselves could be improved. And definitely here, Queen e3, I'm not sure it's your only move. Anyways, we get this crazy situation. And now we get a rook endgame. Whew. Now, you say b4 is a mistake. Say why. And I assume you want him to play rook f2, which would be the natural move. And in this position, I think what we should say is white has a small advantage, but it's still pretty it's not at all clear white's going to win this. We still have a big game in front of us, especially at this level. Good move. And now you get frisky with rook takes g2. Now, nota bene, if you have to play rook e7, then b4 wasn't actually a mistake. It's weird because he's not fixing his king and all, but he tricked you. If it's true that rook takes g2 is a mistake. Rook takes g2, at least he got some practical chances. All right, now here what we can say is there is a guideline for headcanon to win this game, and that is you're probably going to have to sacrifice the rook for the g-pawn, but your connected pass pawns on the queen side, with the king's help as the shepherd, should win the game. Let's see how it goes. Yep, don't like that one. Let's see the variation. Well, that might be simple enough. Now, yeah, now that's full spice level. Now, was it necessary to be so complicated? Maybe. Let's say, pop, 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 pop. Pop is interesting. But you could analyze that. Not clear to me that that's winning because the king will come over. I'm spending too much time on this, but these are the kind of things that fascinate me. Rook A8, intending rook G8. Definitely a valid question. Okay, let's take a look at this. So rook A5, definitely incorrect. Why? We were talking about time before, right? It's hard in the end game for players to understand time to do what. Obviously, the time to do what is to get your pawns moving, to stop your opponent from getting his pawn up there. Good. Good. Now, we're thinking that white is probably lost. Now, he resigned, and it's probably true that it's not resignable. I love this position that he gives. And what you should say here is not that he has potential drawing chances. You should say it's a draw. And the reason it's a draw is because this is a known fortress. A good one is if you can just imagine these two pawns gone and a rook on c3, that's a fortress. So this is definitely a fortress, as white can achieve rook d2, d4. Yeah. And I don't see any way out here either for black. If king g6, we have good chances after rook g8. And here, it's still spicy, isn't it? Hold on. Wait a second. Let's just pause for a second. No, you're right. Wait, king g6. I thought it was poor at first, but now I'm realizing, though, this is still really spicy. King comes back. This would be the position that black could try to win. I think he's winning. I don't think those pawns do it. Now, let's just say if the pawns were here, we'd be toast, but they're not. So again, Jack, this would be the position to try to analyze. This is how you learn endings, to try to analyze this position. And obviously, no, he's going to lose. He's going to lose. I can tell you, but just by looking at it, but this would be a thing for you to analyze out for yourself and would give you a strong sense of how to play these kinds of positions. Let's go back a second. So rook a5, definitely incorrect, because now it's a little bit spicy. Let's talk about this for a second. Rook e2 allowed your opponent some chances with the miracle thing that happens in the game. So looking back on it in terms of analysis, if we imagine our rook on f2, when we queen now, we're able to recapture. It'll be, let me just be clear. Rook here, here, check to the miserable king. Check to the miserable king, and we win the rook. Game over. So that's why rook f2 looks much stronger than rook e2. Okay. Cool. My friends, that was a 2-hour show on the graduates. This was the epic graduates show. We had 7 people. Dojo is continuing to grow, doing great. And the annotations, I say this every time, but I want to just stress it. I've been teaching forever, and I've been trying to get my students to analyze their own games forever. And when they just did it for me, they were often, usually, let's say, of a poorer quality than what I'm seeing in the database. And my strong belief, and this is something I didn't really understand was going to happen with the dojo, but is my belief is why they're so good is because they're publishing for an audience where they're trying to make their thoughts clear. It doesn't mean that they have to be perfect. It means, though, that they have to articulate their thoughts with the most clarity that they can. And clear writing produces clear thinking. And so what's happening is I think it's known for years, for decades, 100 years at least, that going over your games is the way to improve. But publishing your games was not always a thing. For example, if I was some chump as a kid, I could annotate my games, but there's no place for me to publish them. And Bob Vinnick was the one who was like, oh, you should publish your games. Well, he had a place to publish his games. He had a place, he had a venue to publish the games. So now with technology, with the dojo, you have now a place to publish your games, right? Amazing. Amazing. And that's why the quality of analysis is so strong, I think, in the dojo, as compared, as I said, to, let's say, other venues or people like me giving lessons where they're not nearly as strong as this. Okay, great, you guys. Let's end it there. I'm going to do this show. I'm going to try to do this show every Monday at 1:30. And every Monday morning, DM Hokie sends me a list of the graduates. People hate my layout. Thank you very much. I'll try to fix the layout. I got to work on the database too. Dojo makes incremental improvements all the time, okay? It gets a little bit better all the time. All right, my friends, I'm going to raid somebody. Oh, Kostya is playing, by the way, doing really great in this tournament. It is not a norm tournament, but Kostya has to get his rating up, and he beat GM Brandon Jacobson, who's no chump, and then Drew, this other IM who I know, Georgian IM. So he's doing great in this tournament. We'll maybe give an update for how he's doing a little bit later. Now, let's raid. We had to do Bava London. I think we had 2 from Headcanon. So let's raid James Blunder, a.k.a. Mr. Yobava himself, friend of the dojo. All right, my friends. This is my chance to give you a spiel to join, subscribe to the Twitch. But even better, check out the dojo training program, my friends. If you want to support the dojo too, that would be the way, in my heart, I would like you to do it, just to be part of the program. And if you are already a part of the program, if you can share it on social media that you're doing this journey, fantastic, right? Okay, my friends, I'm out of here. Bye. I'll see you soon.